welcome to another episode of How to Be a Texan. Kevin, how in the world are you? You look fantastic today.
Thank you. I just woke up.
I can't say you look like you just woke up. I can't say that because that our viewers would think.
I appreciate that.
Think something.
Well, good thing they don't have to see the videos.
Well, anyway, how you been? What's going
Good,
on?
man. Yeah, good. How about you?
Oh man, Cowboys won today. Feeling good about that.
Huh?
America's team.
It's always nice.
Hey, you know, there's a debate
America.
now that what's her face? Taylor Swift is dating Kelsey, the receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs. The claim is now that the Kansas City Chiefs are really America's team now, with America's sweetheart dating one of their tight ends.
Oh, I hadn't heard that theory yet.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think she's definitely America's sweetheart.
Yeah.
I read that he gained 800,000 like Twitter followers, literally in 1 week.
Yeah. Maybe we should have Taylor on our podcast, and we just, you know, we'd get 50 million people that like us now.
She's been reaching out, but I wasn't sure if she.
Her people have been reaching out to our people.
Yeah, they've been driving me crazy. Actually.
No, her people have been calling Andrew, and Andrew's trying to get it to you, and it's not working out. So, Hey, Kevin, I thought today we'd talk about something kind of hot and spicy. You okay with that?
Yeah, for sure.
So today, you and I have been talking about chilies and peppers and all that, and I've got friends at work that have an amazing tolerance for really, really spicy food. But I thought it'd be fun.
Do you?
I'm in the medium to wimpy on that scale. I really like spicy food, but I'm really kind of a wimp. How about you?
I like it. I like spicy stuff. I mean, I'm not super crazy with it, but I do like it.
Okay.
In fact, I kind of like. It's kind of boring if there's not a little spice and stuff.
No, I'm with you there, but not to the point where you like self-induced sweat, right?
No, I don't do that. That's not fun.
Okay, yeah, me either.
That's not fun.
Did you know there's a survey that says, just take a wild guess where Texas ranks as far as the other 49 states, and in particular, I'm going to highlight two cities. So where do you think Texas and kind of our big cities rank amongst kind of spiciness and appetite for hot food across the country?
I think it's got to be up there, number 1 or 2.
Well, I don't know that it's number 1 or 2, but it's way up there. And we've got 2 of the top 5. And but Charlotte, North Carolina ranked number 1. Can you believe that?
Don't they have like some kind of
hot chicken or
Carolina Reaper
Yeah.
pepper is really, really hot.
Okay. I don't know.
I've heard of that one.
I just know they're number 1. And then you get Atlanta.
I would not have thought that, though.
I wouldn't have either. But then your top 5 are Charlotte, Atlanta, Austin, Dallas, and San Francisco. Isn't that odd?
San Francisco?
Yeah, I know, right? Maybe it's the Chinese. I mean, I don't know. But I was just happy that 2 of the 5 were Texas, which...
Well, I mean, Texas used to be Mexico,
right?
So I'm not surprised. So chilies are native, from Mexico. So I'm not surprised that we're up there. No. But I'm kind of surprised that San Francisco is up there.
I know. I didn't understand. But hey, it's a survey. It's from Thrillst. We can trash on the Thrillst people.
It's just a survey.
And it was done in 2014. So this is not,
That's not right.
But hey, let me frame up kind of how I want to portray the conversation. And then you tell me if you like that as a flow. And if you don't, we can change it because that's what we do. But I thought it'd be fun to talk through just a little bit of the brief history and overview of really the spice market. And not to go into history teacher mode at all because that would be boring. But it would be cool to see how Texas plays into the world market on spices and chilies and all that. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Sure.
Briefly, not to put people to sleep, but briefly, just a little bit of the history on that. And we go all the way back to Christopher Columbus and even further, but I'll be way quick on this. And then we get into, I want to describe the heat scale. You and I have talked through that a little bit about already. Well, that's kind of spicy, and but there's a way to quantify that, and I want to talk about that for just a second. And then third, I want to get into kind of the types of peppers and chilies that you could eat in Texas. And then fourth and finally, I want to talk about kind of consumption and preparation, and not consumption in the form of like the plague or some black plague. I'm talking about like how we consume and prepare.
The Black Plague food.
Well, like remember consumption used to be a thing that you just killed millions back in World War I
the
days.
disease.
Yeah,
I never knew what that meant, actually, consumption.
I don't know what it means even now that I'm telling you that. I just remember that word triggered something in my brain, and I don't mean that at all. I mean, how do we like to prepare it and consume food that's spicy? And I think we'll have lots of opinions on that. Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Right.
This is Kevin in sleepy mode. Kevin.
Stay away from the plague. Talk about food. I'm good.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to the brief history and overview of the spice market. So if you go back all the way to 410 AD, how do you like that? 410 AD. Wow. That's when Rome was getting conquered. And to pay tribute to the conquerors were then saying, you've got to pay me X hundreds of pounds of black pepper, because it was seen as a commodity and very valued and coveted by the conquerors. And it was traded as, amongst the Roman citizens back in the day, that it was very valuable. They used it in all their foods. This is traditional, kind of the black corn pepper or just pepper in general. And that became a commodity. Does that make sense?
It was like a currency.
It was like a currency.
In a lot of ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of picked up a lot of steam. And then especially the Indian influence, the Asian influence, lots of spices and peppers that were coming out of that and being traded across over to Europe in particular. And then you get all the way to Christopher Columbus and all the Incan conquest and the Mayan Indian conquest. And so they're coming through, and Columbus finds the peppers and the chilies that the in particular the Indies and the Mayans and the Aztecs were all using in their daily preparation of food. And it was really just to make it taste good, and it was extremely easy to find because it was just growing on bushes. And that gets back to that capsaicin peppers that you and I have talked about before, about capsaicin. And am I saying that the right way?
I think so.
I think so too. Yeah. But anyway, when you look at kind of the key ingredient or the key juice or whatever it is, the spice that people look for, it's this capsaicin, and it's in a lot of the peppers that are in Central and North America, really South America, Central America, and North America. You got all these peppers that grow naturally, and there's this capsaicin pepper, whatever spice that's part of that. Anyway, it was extremely attractive.
So that's the oil in the so that's the oil in it that makes it spicy.
Is that what it is?
That's what it is. Yeah, that's the chemical.
And then
so this black pepper is like native from India.
Yeah. Oh, that's just like black pepper in general.
The peppercorn. Yeah. So I'm just kind of starting with your little your train of thought there. So the black pepper, grows natively in India.
Right.
And they started trading it like back in the ancient times, right? And like you said, it became like so valuable, and it was a currency actually.
Yeah.
And I remember Kendra and I went to the UK this summer, and we were in a town called York, which was a Roman, ex-Roman, conquered town. And we were reading some stuff, and they had information about how some of the locals there were paid like one peppercorn a day.
Oh, wow.
As their wage, right? I think it might have been paid by the Roman, church or government or whatever it was at the time.
I'll be.
So
okay.
I found that fascinating.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah, so it was so valuable, and so one of the reasons why Columbus started his journey was that they were looking for better routes to the spice markets, and so he literally thought that he had discovered India. He thought he was in India. Just like totally found a different continent, right? But so but that's what prompted the whole thing to begin with, right? They weren't trying to go find, a new world or a new continent. They were literally, trying to find a more efficient way to get to the spice markets, because it was so valuable. And then there was that, just a massive exchange, right? And so the peppers, we call them peppers, but they're a totally different plant than the black pepper. Just because Columbus didn't know any better, and they like discovered it and was like, oh, this is kind of spicy, kind of like black pepper, so they called it pepper.
Yeah,
even though it was a completely different plant altogether.
I'll be.
But then there was a massive exchange, right? So all these spices that the Native Americans didn't know about or have access to, got brought in. Things like cumin and coriander and all that kind of stuff, and then vice versa. Chili peppers and tomatoes and potatoes and all those things that are native to North America. You now see those in food across the world. So there was just like this massive exchange.
Well, just looking at the trade routes that materialized after the conquest of really the New World. It's pretty fascinating just kind of looking at the zigzags all across the planet that spice market kind of generated. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was really out of Mexico and Texas. A lot of those spices were just naturally grown out of that, which was frankly really fascinating. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so that's kind of that's a history. And so the world became aware that Texas and surrounding area, El Paso, New Mexico, down in New Mexico, this prevalence of peppers was available and very cool. And so it really influenced, there are really two things that influenced heavily Texas eating styles. And you hit on one was just the Mexican food, but the second was this Cajun influence as well, coming out of Louisiana to the east. And so kind of current modern-day Texans have a lot of influence over the Mexican food, which now we call, have morphed into Tex-Mex, but then we also have kind of the Cajun influence, which that has a lot of spice in it too, which is pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so that's just a little bit of history on there. So if anybody wanted to fall asleep on that, my apologies. We're not going to dwell on that. So
fall asleep.
But then you get to this thing, and there's this guy, Wilbur Scoville. Do you know Wilbur?
I don't know Wilbur.
Well, I think he's been dead for a long time.
I've heard of the scale.
Yeah, I think he's been dead for a long time.
I didn't know his name was Wilbur, though.
Wilbur? Hello, Wilbur. No, it's, yeah. So, you remember Mr. Ed, the horse show?
Yeah. Yeah. Or was Wilbur on Green Acres? Was he like the pig? No, that was Arnold.
Mr. Ed was the horse, and then he'd say, hello, Wilbur. And
okay.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't know who Wilbur. I didn't watch it. That was like my parents enjoyed that, and then
I didn't really watch Mr. Ed either.
I didn't. It was a talking horse. I mean, there's got to be something for that, right? Anywho, Wilbur, a guy named Wilbur Scoville, he created the scale. And so he was a pharmacologist, and this Scoville heat index was created around 1912, and I'll just read you this definitional sentence. It serves to determine the degree of pungency of fruits of the genus capsicum.
So chili peppers.
I know, basically. But I'm trying to say the word right, which includes peppers and chilies. Okay. And anyway, and then there's a lot of, oh my gosh, there's a super detailed definition of this, but we won't do that. But then what happened was a lot of the Texas-based peppers and chilies that we found, we were able to extract dehydrate those so that we could put them into spice form, and that was a real technology that kind of moved out from kind of Texas and Mexico, which is cool. But anyway, this Scoville heat index is something that you guys will hear a lot of when people are bragging about, oh, well, I ate a ghost pepper, and it was, 2 million Scoville heat index units or something like that, right?
What is a ghost pepper?
I don't know. It's something like that. It's like, I think it's like 500,000, and then you get, like straight capsicum pepper, which is like 1 million, and then you get the pepper spray, which is in kind of police pepper sprays, and that's like ridiculous. That's like 10 million Scoville heat units. So this is saying Carolina Reaper is
2 million?
Yeah.
Or 1.5 million? What's a jalapeno?
It's not that much. That's like 500.
Jalapeno.
Something like that. It's like really, really low. It drops like
2,000. Jalapeno's like in the 2,000s on this.
And then you got to say ghost pepper is going to be way up like 5,000 or something like that, Yeah.
And
then you get up way up there into the stratosphere on some of the other ones.
Habanero's 250,000. I like habaneros.
Yeah. Well, just a little taste of that in your food really kind of nice. It kicks it up a notch.
It's got a good flavor too.
It does.
It's not just like it's hot.
It does.
And then bell pepper is like 0.
Yeah. So then you go from the Scoville heat index unit into kind of what do we have here in Texas? And to me, I would break that into 2 cohorts. One are kind of the sweet peppers, and I remember my grandmother used to always, oh, Kyle, come and eat these sweet peppers out of the garden, and it would be bell peppers or just some real simple, green or yellow peppers, but they were very, very mild, and so you could slice them up and eat them, and it was fine. I never liked that. That's just not my bag. But
bell peppers are good, but those little bitty small sweet peppers, I'm not a big fan.
I'm not either, but some people can just gobble them right up. I mean, yeah. And then people put them in a salad, and they're like, oh, here's some great peppers that you should. I don't even know, what are those called? Do you know what those are called? There's a name for them.
The sweet peppers?
I guess that's it.
The small,
those little
like
small green ones that you always get in salads. I don't know what they're.
I think they're just bell peppers or sweet peppers or something like that.
So you got this category of kind of sweet peppers, and then you've got the hot or the spicy peppers. In the category of the sweet peppers are traditionally the bell peppers or Big Berthas, California Wonders, gypsies, junipers, or Jupiters.
Juniper.
That's a tree. Or a YOLO Wonder, and I'm not sure.
Jupiter.
I'm not sure exactly what all.
Is there a Jupiter? Okay.
Apparently a Jupiter pepper.
Not either.
But then you get into the spicy or the hot peppers, and all these can grow in Texas. The Serrano pepper, or in this list, it's Hidalgo Serrano. I just always hear it's Serrano pepper. The Hungarian wax. Have you ever seen that? I've not seen that pepper. I'm sure that.
Yeah, I've had the wax pepper. It's not my favorite.
Okay.
Serranos. I like Serranos and habaneros.
Yeah,
those are my 2 favorites.
Yeah, so then habanero, jalapenos, cayenne, and then poblanos. Those are the most commonly grown. And I've grown a lot of those in my garden. I tried a habanero this year and didn't have any luck. I have grown a lot of bell peppers, poblanos, and jalapenos in mine.
Oh, you've grown poblanos?
I have.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, and I'm too much of a wimp. I don't even know what to do with, so we wasted all of them. Basically, I gave some of them away at work. But
oh, really? Yeah, they're big. Poblanos should be big.
They're big.
Yeah.
And the bell peppers, people eat those, so I take those to work and give those away. And then the jalapenos, again, those are nice too. I'll keep a little bit, cut them up, and then a lot of people on the jalapeno, they say, oh, well, you eat it fresh, and traditionally what people eat are the pickled jalapenos, which are a lot milder than your fresh jalapenos, right?
I don't think they're milder necessarily.
Well, they've got a kick, but it's not like, and I think a lot of the seeds are taken out. I think those seeds are what really gets you.
The seeds and the white veins inside, like when you cut cut one open.
Yeah.
The white beans have a lot of that spicy stuff in there.
Yeah, and so if you're gonna,
So if you take all that crap out, they're not going to be very spicy.
no, they're not bad at all.
Yeah,
they're not bad.
But jalapenos are not very consistent either.
Oh, really?
Jalapenos, yeah, some of them are hot, some of them are not.
Huh.
They're all over the map.
Okay.
Serranos are very consistent. So, like, just from a cooking perspective, I always buy Serranos because I know pretty much what I'm getting.
Yeah.
Whereas with a jalapeno, it's, they've just been grown and sold and marketed and bred and whatever the term is, crossbred and all that kind of stuff for so long that the jalapenos are not very consistent.
Yeah. Well, the ones that
you can have some that are super hot, some that are
the
not.
ones that I grew this summer, they were fantastic. They had really nice flavor to them.
Yeah.
And they were spicy. They weren't, they weren't, I mean, they weren't killer, but they would get your attention. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever leave them on long enough to where they turn red?
Not this year.
No,
I harvested them pretty quick this year. I should have, though. That's that one thing that I was reading about over in New Mexico with the green chili hatch that has gone on, or I guess is going on now over this 3-month period, kind of through the fall. A lot of times with their harvest, they'll put these basically decorative chili kind of, they're more ornamental. They just lace them all together in a big kind of stringer, and then they'll hang them, and really those are dried out chili, like you were talking about.
Those are dried
out peppers.
Yeah. But like when we would grow them, if we left them on the plant too long, they would turn red, and they would still have some heat, but they seem to be a little bit sweeter.
Yeah.
But they weren't dried out.
I just didn't know what to do with
they'll
that.
just go
So
from
now that
green to
I'm
red.
truly I'm learning about this as we speak. So I realize now that if they've dried up, then they're not wasted. It's just you just use those to cook, and it's going to be a little. They're hard, right?
No, well, they will eventually, but when they start turning red, they're still
Have that
like the same consistency.
Okay.
They're just like ripe. It's like they're more ripe
I
or
see.
something.
Okay, well,
And they get a little bit. They seem to get a little bit sweeter.
okay,
But I think you're supposed to eat them when they're green for the most part.
Right.
But
And
they're still pretty
that's
good
what
when
I've done.
they turn red.
okay. Well, let's turn our attention to kind of the eating part of it. So, like,
So do you know why they're hot?
no. What do you mean?
It's it was a defense mechanism and that evolved in these plants to keep animals from eating them. Did you know that?
No, that's brilliant. Wow.
Yeah. And so when you we're like the only animal that like enjoys eating this stuff.
Wow.
Right? But when you the capsaicin, that chemical, it fits right into the same sensor in your mouth that literally tells your brain that your mouth is on fire. And for most animals, that's like, oh wow, I'm never going to eat that again, type of thing. So it was a defense mechanism, but we actually, as a human race, like actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But in researching this, I found that that's true for like all of our spices.
Oh, really?
Like the spices and all the flavors are basically, these are plants' ways of defending themselves from insects or other animals eating them. Even with like onions and garlic.
Wow.
Onions, like if you start cutting onions, it'll make your eyes, water and stuff like that.
Right.
So these are all defense mechanisms that plants have to keep animals from eating them. And then we are like the only ones that actually enjoy like the flavor of that stuff. And I guess we found over the years, way back in the, ancient times or whatever, that it would actually help us preserve our food.
Okay.
Because their antibacterial properties and all these kind of things with these spices.
Wow.
So that's kind of why these things taste the way that they do, or something spicy or hot or whatever. So I thought that was really, really fascinating when I was researching.
It is, and I think one thing that I saw kind of along those lines was that, we are really the only species that will eat that, and it's almost like that we eat something like that knowing that it's the fight or flight going on in our brain, but then something kind of overturns that, and your brain knows that your mouth is actually not on fire, and it's almost proving to yourself that you're alive, and you know that you can kind of push through that. And so it's almost like a self-induced rush, you know?
Yeah. Well, the fight or flight is what happens with fight or flight is you have that, initial fight or flight response, and then your body releases endorphins.
Okay.
And the reason it releases endorphins is like, back in, caveman time, if something's, if the, saber-toothed tiger's trying to attack you, you don't just want to sit there and shrivel up. Your body releases endorphins, so you're like, oh, I got to run, right? It gives you that burst of energy to run, for your life.
Right.
And in researching this, the same thing happens, right? That heat, you feel it, but then you're in that same response, your body actually releases some endorphins, which makes you feel good about it, right? And so it kind of becomes a little bit of an addictive thing.
I'll be.
Because of that response. It's really, really interesting.
I don't know about you, but I'm thankful that I don't have to fight off saber-toothed tigers anymore.
Yeah, me too.
That seems like a kind of a bad way to go.
Yeah.
Anywho. Yeah. So as far as the foods that we like to consume that have spices in them, so like mashed potatoes that are bland, no, that's not it. But then the majority of our food has some element of kind of spiciness to it. So we have all these readily available spices and peppers that are available to us. We have the influence of the Mexicans, and that has morphed into kind of Tex-Mex or traditional Mexican that we have is a lot of our big foods here in Texas. And then we've got some of the Cajun influence, which frankly, having spent, several years of my life in Baton Rouge, that is a very cool deal. I mean, Cajun food is crazy spicy, but crazy awesome, in my opinion. And any influence that we can get on that, I think, is a good thing. So of all the kind of the food groups that you like, Kevin, walk me through, and even as you kind of do your pitmaster stuff with all your meats, I see that you add things to that to kind of add some zest to it. So kind of walk me through some of your favorite things that you like to either prepare or eat that have some kind of kicked up, factor to it.
So with barbecue, right? Mm-hmm. There's always chilies in the barbecue rubs that I do. Now, a lot of times in Texas style barbecue, they'll just put salt and pepper on things, especially like on brisket.
Right.
It's kind of traditional to just do salt and pepper. But, more and more these days people, but like if you go to the South, you get out of Texas style barbecue into Southern barbecue. We talked about some of the stuff on previous episodes. Those always have a lot of, paprika and, chili powders and stuff like that in their spice mixes, for pulled pork or ribs or whatever. So I put a lot of, I generally add, chili peppers and stuff like that. I did some chili powders this week I took some of those dried peppers like you were talking about.
Oh, really?
I took some guajillo peppers and I'm drawing a blank on the name of the other one. It starts with hold on a second. I have to look this up.
Well,
what was that other pepper? What's the dried version of the poblano?
Oh, I've already forgot that too. I knew that too.
Ancho. I can't believe I'm forgetting ancho.
Yeah. So you put ancho in your mix, in your dry rub mix.
So I took some of those and roasted them and then put them in the Vitamix and turned them into powder. Right. So and that's where chili powder comes from. It's those kind of dried things, but if you do it that way, it's just a lot fresher.
Okay.
So I have some mix like that I like to make, and then I'll put that into barbecue stuff. Right. So like I was barbecuing this weekend, and so I took some of that chili powder and mixed it in with salt and pepper.
Oh, that's so good. I know I've told you about this, Kevin, but there's a book that I read last year that it for me, I used to be a science guy. I was pre-med, and so I had all these science classes, and I ended up getting a minor in chemistry, believe it or not, even though I don't use that at all. But I am fascinated. Like, the reason why I love baking pies so much is just really, it's just a fun chemistry experiment with a really nice outcome. And I know you do that a lot with all the grilling that you do. There was a book that I read, and it's called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. And it's this female Indian master chef that basically breaks down these 4 elements into each component is a pillar, a cornerstone of kind of the cooking process. And if you understand salt, fat, acid, heat, every component of that, you can tweak whatever you want to do to kind of, make it into whatever concoction you're trying to get to. The reason I say that is because you mentioned on how you kind of prepare your meats is a lot of times in Texas we do salt and pepper. Well, the salt, and everything that I've learned so far is a really nice way to, number one, flavor the meat, but it also starts breaking down that sinewy, muscular, very, a little bit harder fibrous tissue into something that's very tender and very, very edible. The pepper, though, like there was a favorite place down in Junction, Texas that I used to go on our deer lease that we had for years and years. They would do a salt and pepper rub, but it would be with peppercorn. It would just be with actual peppercorn, and you taste it, and it was amazing. And it was all smoked. So anyway, I want to encourage everybody, if you haven't read that book, you should totally read it. It's amazing. And, the weird part, I think I told you this, is, I don't know, 2/3 of the book are about those kind of 4 pillars. But then the last is her explanations and giving you examples of how she would prepare something and then how she uses those 4 pillars to guide her in her, whatever, which is actually fantastic. So what else?
Yeah, no, and when salt's a preservative too,
Yeah.
right? So salt is, one of the best preservatives. So a lot of this stuff started, to preserve, the meats and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then also we have a certain amount of salt in our. It's kind of gross, but on our saliva in our mouth. And if we eat food that is lower than that percent, I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head. I've known this before. But if your food's lower than that, it tastes bland to you.
Oh, okay.
And so, that's why a lot of times you don't want your food to be overly salted, but you want to have, the right level of salt. And what salt does is it amplifies. It's like a microphone for the flavors.
Right.
Basically, it just amplifies the flavors, makes everything taste better.
Well,
sugar does the same thing. I mean, sugar will make stuff sweet as you add it, but if you add just a little bit of sugar, and most barbecue rubs have a little bit of sugar in it because sugar is also a flavor enhancer, as well as acid. Acid is also another flavor enhancer.
Oh yeah,
right. So a lot of times after you cook something, you can squeeze some lime or lemon on it, and it kind of turns the volume up on the flavors a little bit too. And then salt will also tone down fat. So if you have something that's too greasy or too fatty, not salt but acid, right? Put some lemon or lime on it, and that kind of balances that out, right? So that idea of salt, fat, acid, they all work together. It's kind of like turning dials on a mixing board. If you're trying to mix or EQ sound, it's the same type of thing. You can turn up and down the, kind of the flavors based on, what you do with the salt and the fat and acid and even sugar.
Well,
to a certain extent.
I enjoyed it, and it was extremely educational to me. But going back to some of the kind of the common, things, and then we'll round it out. But as far as kind of just the everyday stuff that we eat, I mean, just think about if you, I'm just going to get a burger or something. Well, a lot of times the burgers are tricked up with some kind of, I don't know, peppers, chilies, whatever, so that it enhances that flavor. Certainly we have the Tex-Mex, we have chili is, in the meat-based kind of chili where it's not, I don't know, a stew, or, I mean, you can call it a soup or a stew or whatever, but that's got lots and lots of cayenne and chili powder and all kinds of amazing stuff that once you kind of have it cooked for hours and hours and hours, those flavors really meld together. And some, if it's 5 alarm or 1 alarm or whatever, but it definitely has a zing to it. And
that's our state dish of Texas.
Yeah, that's right.
Chili. No beans.
Yeah, no beans. Yeah, right.
That's the big debate. You want to start trouble on social media, just go on Facebook and ask if you should put beans in chili or something.
Yeah. So,
nuts.
right.
It's ridiculous.
No, it is, but it's just fun. That, two of the most spicy, preferent, eating places are Austin and Dallas. I would really mark the whole state up because, I've lived in San Antonio too. All that food, it feels like in San Antonio is, has, kind of some really cool spices to it. So
I read a book last week. It's called Masala Lab.
Okay.
And it's from an Indian guy named Chris Ashok.
Okay.
And it's the science of, he calls it the science of Indian cooking, but it really is science of cooking, similar concepts to what we were talking about.
Right.
But one thing that he talked about in the book is that, a lot about how these are, with the peppers and spices and everything, it's that defense mechanism and, it's antibacterial and it preserves food and stuff like that. And he talks about how if you look at the map, because you think about, where do you have food with lots of flavor, right? It's usually like you think of Mexican food or Indian food or, Thai food or, those kind of things, right? And you think about, British food, people think bland, right? Or Canadian food, right? Or even American food to a certain extent. People think bland. And he talks about, one of the reasons for that is, if you look at the map, like all of those countries and areas that are kind of close to the equator, very, very hot, humid environments. And so they had to use, lots of spices and stuff like that to keep the food from spoiling, as quickly, right? Whereas if you're up in the northern, parts of the world, away from the equator, either north or south, as you get farther away, it's they didn't have as big of a problem back then. Especially up in the cold areas like Canada or Alaska or whatever, right? Food would just last a little bit longer because it was colder, right? And so one of the ideas is that's why those cuisines for those countries that are kind of along both sides of the equator generally have more spice and more flavor to it because of that, right? So Texas was part of Mexico, so we're north of the equator, obviously, but not by a ton. And so that's why I think our food in particular in Texas has more traditional root, right? Even if you go beyond quote unquote Tex-Mex into what were the natives eating that lived in this area that is now Texas. It was a lot of the same kind of stuff with chili peppers and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I thought that was fascinating because I've always wondered why are certain types of food spicy and other are bland, but I thought that was a pretty good explanation for that. It just kind of evolved over time with people needing to preserve their food. And then of course that preservation is what kind of drove the massive drive for the spice trade that we started with at the beginning. Anyway, it's all really, really, really interesting. Fascinating stuff.
That makes a ton of sense. And I know just living here that is a real option, even for lightweights like me. I still enjoy it. I just have to enjoy it with moderation. Let's put it that way. So, all right, man. Well, hey, I think this is great talk. Anytime I get to get you talking about cooking and food preparation, I think that's a win. So
right on, man.
Well played, my friend. So, all right. Well, so there's chili and pepper talk and Andrew can ask like, how does this apply to Texas? It's dead on. We're dead on topic, right?
I think we covered that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks. I appreciate everybody listening and. Hope you'll have a great week.
Yeah, look us up. We're out on Spreaker, iTunes. It's not iTunes. It's Apple Podcasts. I don't know why I always want to say iTunes.
Yeah, I still say
iTunes is like 30 years ago. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Look us up. Give us a review. Adios.
All right, see ya.
Bye.